He. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable, the Justice E. Susan Gosh of the Superior Court, now sitting at Fall River within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Court is now in session. Be seated, please.
Yes, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Today is Tuesday, March 24th, 2015. The case on trial is Commonwealth versus Aaron Hernandez, indictment BRCR 2013-0983. The Honorable E. Susan Garsh presiding.
Good morning. Good morning. Have any of you seen, heard, read, or overheard anything at all about this case or Mr. Hernandez since our last inquiry? There are no affirmed responses. Have any of you discussed this case in any way, or Mr. Hernandez with anyone at all since our last inquiry? There are no affirmed responses. And have any of you had any difficulty following any of the court's instructions not to talk about, not to listen to, not to read, not to do any research about this case, anything you think could be relevant to the case, or Mr. Hernandez? There are no affirmed responses. You may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd call Thomas McDonald, please.
Right this way, sir. Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Sir, do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You may proceed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you state your full name, please?
Thomas McDonald.
And can you spell your last name?
Capital McDonnell.
And where are you from, sir?
Bristol, Connecticut.
How long have you lived there?
Oh, 40 years.
And do you have a family?
Yes,
And how many children do you have?
3.
And did they, approximately how old are they?
They are 27, 26, and 24.
Do you have any sons?
Yes,
How
2.
many?
2.
Okay. And did your sons go to school in Bristol, Connecticut?
Yes,
And was one of them friendly with an individual by the name of Aaron Hernandez?
yes,
And as a result of that, did you have an occasion to meet him some number of years ago?
yes,
And do you see Aaron Hernandez in the courtroom today?
yes, I do.
Could you just point him out and describe what he's wearing? If you just describe how he's dressed today.
He's got a white shirt on, a polka-dotted tie, black jacket.
Okay, Your Honor, if the record can reflect the witness identifying the defendant. Now, who is he friendly with?
Actually, the whole family.
Okay, and as a result of that, did you occasionally, would he call your home or call your phone?
Yes,
Now, taking you back to June of 2013, did you have a particular phone number for Aaron Hernandez?
I did.
And at some point after about the middle of the month, say after about June 18th, did that number change?
I believe so.
Okay. And do you know, at some point thereafter, did you have a different number for him?
There was.
And how was it that you had received a new number?
Well, Aaron called me, and I just put it in on new contacts, you know.
And just describe what you mean by that.
Well, when it came in and Aaron started talking to me, I just, you know, I recognized it was a different number, and I just put it into my phone as a new number to get a hold of him.
Okay. And do you recall the date, that occasion where you received that phone call?
No, I don't.
Now, at that time in your phone, did you have him listed in a particular way as a contact?
Just Aaron.
Okay. And did you also have a photograph that was attached to the name?
Yes, picture of Aaron and my 2 boys.
So I'm just going to show you this, this document, ask you if you recognize it.
Yes.
Okay. And what do you recognize? Do you recognize the information contained therein?
Yes, that came out of my cell phone.
When you say it came out of your cell phone, did that pertain to the information you were just talking about, the contact information that you had back in June 2013 for Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer this is the next exhibit. No objection.
Next exhibit.
Thank you very much. I'm placing what's now marked 398 on the overhead. I'm just going to have you direct your attention to the left. There's a monitor right there. And sir, does this show the information that you had as contact information for Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
You indicated there was a picture that was attached to that contact information.
Yes.
Is that shown here, sir?
Yes.
And is that, you described you have 2 sons, are they shown in the photograph?
Yes.
And is that also Aaron Hernandez, the defendant?
Yes.
Now, prior to entering a new number, what was the number that you had for the defendant?
I believe it was the 203 number. I never really knew the number.
Okay. Had you previously had contacts with him, though, on your phone with the old number?
Yes.
And when he called you or you called him, would it just show up in under a certain name?
It would just say Aaron.
And was this the contact that you had for Aaron in your phone?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the new number, what was the new number?
The new number was 949-572-8546.
I think you indicated some point how you were able to get that number is after a phone call,
Yes.
and who had called you.
Aaron called me.
And during the course of that, how were you able to do that, to enter that into your phone?
I just hit add contact or add number in my phone.
Now, and there was also some additional information that you had for the contact for the defendant, Aaron Hernandez,
Yes.
and what was that?
His address?
Yes, sir. And that address, where did you get that from?
I got that from Aaron.
And is that accurately reflected there, 22 Ronald C. Meyer, North Attleboro, Mass., US 02760?
Yes.
Now, sir, at some point, did you, after that initial contact, did you have any further contacts with the defendant in approximately a week or the days that followed?
Yes.
And do you recall whether those contacts after the initial phone call, do you recall whether you had any additional text messaging?
There were text messages sent back and forth. No I don't know what you're looking for. There's,
Okay, well, let me just ask you this. Just in that first conversation, do you recall that being approximately a 5-minute conversation?
yes.
And do you recall the substance of what you spoke about?
Not too much. I mean, how's the day going? You know, you get sleep, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Did you have any conversation about the investigation of a matter at that time into the homicide of Odin Lloyd?
Not at all.
And within the next few days, to the extent that any text messages were sent, was there any communication about the case or the investigation?
No.
Okay. Do you recall the substance of those, of any other text messages that you would have sent in the days that followed?
I mean, they were just little things. How's he doing? If he needs anything, you know, we're right there. If he wants us to come up, whatever, that was about it.
Okay. Do you recall whether you had any further phone calls from Aaron Hernandez, the defendant?
I'm sure I did. I couldn't tell you what we spoke about.
Okay. Yeah, approach one. So again, I just shown you that contact and that number 949-572-8546. Now I'm going to show you what was previously marked 308. So I'm just going to direct your attention to the number contained here. Do you recognize that number, sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that number to be?
That was the number that I called
You say the number you called. What number?
for Aaron, to speak to Aaron.
And were you able to speak to him at that number?
Yes.
Sir, do you know what a track phone is?
Not really. I mean, I've heard of them. They're like throwaway phones, I believe.
Have you ever owned a track phone?
No.
Now, sir, I'm just going to show you what's been previously marked 309. So I'm just going to ask you if you recognize this number here.
Yes.
Okay, what do you recognize that number to be?
Aaron's contact number.
Okay, and is that any different than the last two numbers that I've shown you?
I don't believe so.
Okay. One I just showed you a few moments ago. 5728546.
Yes.
Your contact, 949-572-8546.
Yes.
And this number here now, 949-572-8546, is that appear to be the same?
Yes.
I'm going to go to the second page. direct your attention on line 64, on June 22nd. You recognize actually this number here, sir.
That is my number.
Okay, and that number being what, sir?
860-324-4602.
Do you recall whether this was the first occasion you had a phone call on this number, 1949-572-8546?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yes, sir. Do you recall whether this was the first time you had received a phone call on this new number of Aaron Hernandez?
I'm not sure.
But in any event, on this date of June 22nd, approximately 7:59 in the evening, do you recall having a phone call for approximately 5 minutes and 45 seconds with the defendant, Aaron Hernandez?
I don't remember the conversation. I'm sure that I did speak with him.
Well, on that first occasion, you said when you first had received, so that you were able to actually enter that new information, do you
Okay.
recall how long you spoke to him on that?
Probably 5 minutes.
So I'm just going to put up this next line, the number 30, page 7. Do you recall at this time having a number of text messages? Yeah, well, let me just back you up for a second. Do you see that number right there?
Yes,
And whose number is that?
that's my number.
Now, just before it is a number that is very similar to your number. Do you know whose number that is?
That would be my son, Ryan.
And at approximately 8:16 p.m. on June 22nd, do you recall having some text messaging with the defendant at this new phone number, 949-572-8546?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recognize that next line as being your phone as well?
Yes,
And that one that we have the paper.
yes,
And this one as well, sir.
yes.
And sir, do you recall the last occasion that you had phone contact with the defendant on this phone?
No, I don't.
Just going to direct your attention, sir. This will be line 51. The date of June 23rd, approximately 8:08 p.m. You recognize that as being your number, sir?
Yes,
And you recognize that being the number, the new number that you had for the defendant?
yes.
Morning, Mr. McDonald.
Good morning.
Sir, how long have you known Aaron?
I've known Aaron since he was in the 6th grade.
And, sir, prior to June of 2013, did you communicate by phone and text with Aaron?
Yes.
And how regular did you communicate by phone and text with Aaron?
Quite often.
Didn't you communicate with Aaron on an almost regular daily basis,
Yeah.
sir?
Yes.
So receiving a communication in June of 2013 is consistent with your experience with Aaron, isn't it?
Right, yes. Yeah.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Okay.
Nothing further, thank
You
you,
may
sir.
step down.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Your Honor, if we could call Jennifer Mercado, please. And Your Honor, while she's coming in, could we see what the sidebar?
Right this way, ma'am. Will you please face the clerk and raise your right hand?
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Would you state your full name, please?
Jennifer Mercado.
How old are you, ma'am?
I'm 41
And where do you live?
in Bristol, Connecticut.
Did you grow up in Bristol?
Yes,
Excuse me. And do you have a family in Bristol?
yes.
Who is in your immediate family?
My father, my sister, my 2 nephews
And where do you live?
at 114 Lake Avenue.
And how long have you lived there?
Since 1997.
When you say your sister, what is your sister's name?
Tanya.
And Tanya, what is her full name?
Tanya Singleton.
And is she, was she at some point prior to being married, was she known as Tanya Valderrama?
Valderrama.
Valderrama, I beg your
Yes.
pardon. And then later was she known as Tanya Cummings?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at Lake Avenue, who else lived at Lake Avenue with you?
Her husband, TL, and off and on, Bo.
And when you say Bo, who is Bo?
Well, we called them Fish or Bo.
Okay. And do you know what his full name is?
Yes, Ernest Wallace.
Okay. And how long did he live with you?
Off and on since TL, moved into the house. When her and, when him and my sister had a relationship.
I see. And approximately, when did your sister Tanya and TL get married?
May 2011, I believe.
Okay. And how long was it that Bo, when did he first move in? How long had he been at the home?
Well, off and on for a few years.
Okay, when you say a few years, can you give us an idea?
Maybe 3 or 4.
Okay. And so beginning at what time would you say did he first live there? 2009, 2010?
Yes.
Okay. And how was it that you first knew Bo or Fish?
I knew him from when I was a young girl. I knew him from, just around town and stuff like that.
And was that from around the town of Bristol?
Yes.
Now, do you have, excuse me, extended family in Bristol? Cousins?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
And is he one of your cousins?
Yes.
And how is he your cousin?
His father was my uncle.
Okay. And your mother was his father's sister?
Sister, yes.
And just for the purpose of the record, you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
If you wouldn't mind just pointing him out and describing what he's wearing.
He's right there. He has a jacket on, a tie with, I don't know what's on it, but with some kind of description on it with a white shirt.
Okay, Your Honor, if the record can reflect the witness identifying the defendant. Now, while Bo was living there, you said he was off and on. How long would he be at the home and how long would he not be at the home?
Sometimes he'd be there for, a couple of days. Sometimes he would stay for a couple of weeks. But he would stay here and there. Sometimes he would stay at, his girlfriend's house or friends' houses.
Okay. Do you know if he was friendly with the defendant, Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay, and how was he friendly with him?
They met through TL, my sister's husband.
Okay. And how often did you see them together?
Not often, because Aaron would come down just once in a while. But it wasn't often that I saw, the two of them together.
Okay. And with regard to your sister, Tanya, did she have a relationship with the defendant?
Yes.
And just tell us about that relationship.
That was her son. He's like my nephew. They were very close. Our families have always been close.
Okay. And with regard to her relationship with Bo or Fish, describe that relationship.
He was like a brother to her.
Okay. And do you know an individual by the name of Carlos Ortiz?
Yes.
And how do you know him?
I know him from when Bo and TL brought him over to the house.
Okay. And when did you first meet him?
I want to say it was recent. I want to say 2012, 2013.
Okay. And just describe the relationship between Carlos Ortiz and Aaron Hernandez.
I think they went to school together, or they played sports together.
Okay. And do you know how long they had known each other?
No.
And just to the extent of their relationship,
Now, later on, just describe that for us.
They were just, as you would call, boys.
Okay, what does that mean?
They were friends.
And how often would you see them together?
Not often at all.
Okay. And would you see, when Aaron came down on those occasions you described he'd come down to visit, would you see him visit with Carlos Ortiz?
No, only if he was at the house, but no, I don't remember.
Okay, and what about Bo or Fish?
Yes, because Bo would probably, most likely would be at the house. If Bo was there, then he would see him.
Okay. And Carlos Ortiz, did you have a nickname for him?
Charlie Boy.
Okay. And did you ever know him to stay over at your home?
He stayed over a couple nights, but he never lived there or anything.
Okay. And so how frequently was he staying over at the house?
He wouldn't stay over frequently. He only stayed over a few nights.
Okay. And when you say a few nights, how frequently,
Like-
meaning how often? What would be the time span?
Like a day or two, he would stay,
Okay.
and then he would leave.
And what about the relationship between Charlie Boy and Bo or Fish?
They were friends as well.
Now, do you know what Ernest Wallace, Bo or Fish, was doing for work?
I don't know him to work at all.
Okay. Did you know whether he had a car?
No.
Okay. Did you ever see him in a car?
Yes.
Okay. And when would you see him in a car?
Well, when he would ride with TL, and I saw him, I think it was Father's Day night, in a car.
Okay. So when you said when you saw him riding with TL, whose car was that?
That was my dad's car.
Okay. And when he was riding, was he driving or was he just a passenger?
He was passenger.
Who would be driving your father's car?
TL.
Now, at some point in time, just going back to June 16th of 2013, do you recall that being a Sunday, Father's Day?
Yes.
And on that date, do you recall seeing Ernest Wallace, Bo or Fish, and Carlos Ortiz or Charlie Boy?
Yes.
Okay, and where did you see him on that date?
Outside.
Had you seen him earlier in the date?
I may or may have not. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know whether they have children?
I think Charlie Boy has either 2 or 3 children, and Ernest has like 4 or 5.
Okay. And do you know whether there was some type of visit happening on Father's Day?
No.
Okay. Do you know, did you see them spending any time at your home on that weekend?
No. They may have, like on Father's Day, like I said, I saw them getting ready to leave, but that was early morning, late night.
Okay. But just during the course of that weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, do you recall seeing them around your house?
Oh yeah, Bo was there.
Okay. And when you say Bo was there, where was he?
I think he was just in in the room watching TV. He may or may have not been. I don't actually remember for sure.
Okay. And Carlos Ortiz, if he was there, would that be an unusual event to see him around the house?
It wouldn't be unusual because he's been there before, but yeah, he didn't come around often.
Okay. And do you recall whether you saw him on that weekend?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, at some point you indicated there was an occasion where you saw them outside of the home?
Yes,
Okay. And approximately, that was on Father's Day?
Father's Day evening.
Okay. And approximately what time, if you recall, did you see them?
I don't. It must have been it was late at night. It was dark. I took my dog out. So,
Is there a certain time you take your dog out or just in the
no,
evening?
whenever whenever they have to go, they go. They
Right.
wake me up. So,
Okay.
I know it was late at night. It was dark out.
Did you take your dog outside?
Yes,
Okay. When you take your dog outside, is there a yard around your home?
yes.
And did you see, when you went out in that area, did you see Bo or Fish or Charlie Boy?
Yes.
And where did you see them?
They were to my right as I walk out my back door.
Okay. And approximately how far were they from you when you first exited?
I want to say maybe 8, 10 feet.
And did you have any words, did you say hello, or any conversation between you?
No.
Okay. Did anyone gesture to you, or?
Yeah, they were just said, bye, that they were leaving.
Okay. And did you see how they were leaving?
Yes.
And how was that?
In a silver vehicle.
And when you say a silver vehicle, just describe that.
It was a 4-door sedan of some sort. I don't know the actual make and model of it, but it was like a 4-door sedan. And it was kind of long, squarish.
And had you seen that silver sedan before?
No.
Okay. Did you recognize it as somebody's?
No.
And who, just tell us, when you say they said goodbye, they were leaving, did you see them get into the car?
Yes.
And who got into the driver's side?
Bo.
And what about Charlie Boy, Carlos Ortiz?
Passenger side.
Okay, was there anybody else with them?
No.
Now, you said as they then began to leave, did they indicate to you where they were going, just yes or no?
No.
Now, do you recall the next occasion where you saw either one of them?
I don't.
Okay. Do you recall within a couple of days them returning to your home?
No.
Do you have any memory of that on June 19th, sometime in the morning, that Charlie Boy and Bo and Tanya were at your home?
I don't remember. I always stayed in my room at that
Okay.
time, so I don't remember.
Let me ask you this. Are you married?
Yes.
And your husband, what is his name?
David Ricardo?
Okay. And is he away from the home at this time?
Yes.
And was he away from the home back on June 19th of 2013?
Yes.
And do you recall having a phone conversation with him?
I don't.
I'm sorry.
I talk to him all the time, so.
Okay. And do you recall indicating at that time that Bo, Tanya, and Charlie were at the home?
Objection sustained. You may.
Ma'am, I'm just going to show you this document.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you to read first, and just to yourself, this top line.
Okay.
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 Okay, and then I'm going to ask you to read from here down to the end of that where it's been yellowed.
Okay. This right here?
If you would just start. Yeah,
Right there?
Right from there down to the end
Okay.
where it's yellow.
Jennifer?
I'm sorry, just to yourself.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, and then I'm just going to ask you to read this next portion here to yourself that's been yellowed.
Okay.
Okay. Now, having read that to yourself, ma'am, does that refresh your memory about whether you saw those individuals again at your home?
I mean, it doesn't refresh my memory, like I can't remember seeing them, but according to that, yes.
You've answered the question. Everything after it doesn't refresh my memory is audit stricken.
So, do you recall then the next occasion you saw Bo, if ever?
I don't remember seeing them.
And Charlie Boy, the next occasion you would have seen him?
I don't remember.
And Tanya, do you recall seeing?
I see my sister all the time.
Okay.
I lived at the house.
And she was living at the home at that time, is that right?
Yes.
And do you recall at about this same time, your sister making a statement about, that she, if I could just finish the question, that she intended to go?
Well, you may ask about a statement with respect to intent.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did she make a statement to you that she intended, of an intention to go somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. And where did she tell you she was going?
She told me she was going to Georgia.
Okay. And do you recall when she told you that, whether she was with anybody?
No.
Okay. Do you recall the last time you saw, when she made that statement, the last time before that that you had seen her in the company of Bo or Charlie Boy?
May have been Father's Day, Father's Day night after her and TL came back with TL's daughter from spending time on Father's Day together late that evening.
Okay. So when she indicated, so on that date, trying to remember the date that she told you she was going to Georgia, she intended to go to Georgia. Did you see her leave sometime after that?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when, but yes.
Okay. And when you last saw her, was she with anybody leaving?
No.
Okay. Did you see whether she had anything with her?
No. Just clothes.
Okay. So did she have any luggage? How were the clothes?
Just a little backpack, like a.
And did you give her anything before she had left?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Do you recall whether you had any money at that time?
No.
Do you recall whether you collected any money at that time?
I don't remember.
Okay. So do you recall anything about money prior to her when you last saw her then leave?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Now, after she had expressed that intention to go to Georgia, when was the next time that you saw her?
I believe it was the 26th, around there, either before
26th
of June.
Okay. And so how much time had passed between she had expressed that intention to leave to Georgia to when you next saw her, approximately June 26th?
3 to 7 days.
So 3 to 7 days. Can you be more certain about that time frame?
No. I know that she came back, I believe it was the 26th, and she dropped her luggage and she left.
Okay, when you said, so how long, let's just take this in parts. When she first indicated that she was leaving to Georgia, how long before you next saw her?
I want to say 3 or 4 days, maybe.
Okay. And on that occasion you just described, you saw her, was that back at your home?
Yes.
Okay, and just describe what she did when you saw her at the home.
She came in and she left her backpack, her duffel bag in the kitchen, and then she left.
Okay. And when she left, did she express any intention about where she was going from there?
I believe she was going to see her husband.
Okay. And at that time, when is the next time you saw her?
That same night, I believe.
Okay, well, I think you indicated that then she gone for a couple of other days?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, At this time, when she had expressed that intention to go to Georgia, and then you didn't see her for 3 days, does she, I think you indicate she has children?
Yes,
Okay. And how old are those children?
5 and 8.
And who is caring for those children when she expressed that intention to go to Georgia?
Myself and my father.
Okay. And so how long did you care for those children before you saw her again?
Like 4 days, and then like around 3 or 4 days, then she came back and left her luggage, and she may or may not have come back that evening, but it was like maybe the night after or so, if she didn't come back that evening.
Okay. Do you recall whether she actually went for a couple of more days?
No, I don't think she went for, it wouldn't have been no more than 2 if she did.
Okay. Well, initially, did you indicate 3 to 7 days?
Yeah.
And what makes you think it was upwards of 7 days? in
Well,
total?
because she went to Georgia, she came back, and then she left again, and then she came back.
Okay, so I think you indicated the first time she came back was approximately 3 days?
3 or 4 days.
Okay. So where was she the other 4 days, 3 or 4 days after that?
With her husband, as far as I knew.
And so do you recall seeing her in the next 3 or 4 days at the home?
Yes.
Okay.
She would stop by the house.
I'm sorry?
She would stop by the house.
And when you say she would stop by the house, how long would she be at the house?
She'd be there for a little while. She'd see the kids.
And then do you
And
know
then-
where she went?
No.
Now, when she left, and you indicated she had expressed that intention to go to Georgia, at some point, did you have, in those 3 days, did you have any phone contact with her?
Yes.
Okay. And prior to that date, had you had a phone number that you communicated with her?
Yes.
Now, during the time that she left, did that phone number change?
Yes.
And do you know whose phone you are now communicating with her?
No.
Who was calling whom?
My sister would call me, and then if she couldn't reach me, she would leave a message, and I would get back to her. And
Okay.
vice versa. If I couldn't reach her, then she would call me back.
And during those 3 days, did you ever have an occasion to have a conversation with her where you could hear voices in the background?
Yes.
Okay. And whose voice or voices could you hear?
Bo.
And did you ever speak to Bo on that phone?
No.
And later on, when you saw your sister, after the number of days you've described when you next saw her, did you see her with a phone?
With her phone.
Okay. And after she had returned, when you next saw her, were you able to communicate with her on her old phone number?
Yes.
What about that other number? Did you have any further communication with that number?
No.
Now, your number at that time, ma'am, was what?
860-845-4518.
And at some point, did you communicate frequently with that phone that we've just been talking about?
Yes.
And do you recall what that phone number was, the number for
No.
that?
I don't.
No, I could, approach the overhead. Ma'am, I'm just going to have you draw your attention to the monitor on the left. I'm putting on, it's previously been marked 346.
Okay.
Ma'am, can you see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, just above the fold of paper there.
Mm-hmm.
You see the number that's listed here as the dial digit number?
Yeah.
Okay. And you recognize that number?
The
This number here,
491?
ma'am, 860
Yes, that's my number.
845-4518.
Yes.
That's showing a date of June 22nd, 2013,
Mm-hmm.
at 13:30 to 1:30 in the afternoon, approximately 34 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall when your sister was away from the home for 3 days? Do you recall that being around June 22nd?
Yes.
And does this number, 860-491-5275, appear as the number that she had called you during that time period?
Yes.
Now, I just want the second page. Direct your attention to the column over here that says calling party number.
Mm-hmm.
And you recognize this number as the calling party number, 860-45-4518.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to say yes or no.
Yes. Sorry.
And do you recall calling this number, 860-491-5275, on the date of June 23rd, 2013, approximately 1:52?
Yes.
Do you know if that call was forwarded, ma'am, when you tried to call it, call that number?
I don't remember.
And you recall at 13:53 on that same date, calling that number?
Yes. I believe so.
And just with regard to, excuse me, the call I'm showing you, June 23rd, 13:53, you recall having some 5-minute conversation with your sister on that date?
Yeah, I may
Do you
have.
recall?
I may have.
Did you continue to call her on this number for any further dates, if you recall?
I may have, because of the kids, or if she left me a message, I would return her call.
Okay, well, let me just direct your attention to the date of the 24th. You recognize that as your number,
Yes.
calling on that date.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
again later on in the day. On the 24th as well. Let me just so you can see that. You see that okay?
Yes.
And after the 24th, did you have any further contact with her on that phone, if you recall?
I don't recall.
Now, while your sister Tanya was away, do you recall being contacted by somebody else on a different phone?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall receiving a text saying, Gina, it's me, something to that effect?
I recall it when you questioned me at the grand jury.
Okay, you and I met some time ago, is that right?
Yes.
And did I ask you about some questions that had been recovered from a text message on your phone?
Yes.
And I asked you, do you recall the content of the text message?
Gina, it's,
Just,
You may answer yes or no whether you recall the content.
not exactly.
okay. But was there a text that you
Yes.
received and we talked about?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, there was a particular number that you were being asked about who sent that text. Is that right?
Yes.
And there was certain information in the text that asked you to do something. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And did you do that?
Yes.
And as a result of receiving that text, what did you do?
I relayed the message, I believe.
Okay, and what message did you, first of all, who did you relay it to?
I don't remember.
Now, with regard to that message, do you recall whether, just in terms of when you received it, where Tanya was?
I believe she was away at that time in down south.
Okay. And do you recall doing something with that number that you had received with regard to your sister?
I believe I forwarded it to her.
Now, some time ago, I had asked you about whether you knew the person who sent that number.
Right, correct.
And your answer was?
I didn't remember.
Okay. And did you indicate that you actually had called that number, had a conversation with the person who sent you that text message?
I only remember what you and I discussed that day, but from remembering myself, no.
Okay. Did you review your prior testimony prior to appearing here today?
No.
You had been given that, is that fair to say?
No.
Well, you have an attorney, don't you?
I do.
And is it fair to say you were granted immunity in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And but you've not had an opportunity then to review your prior statement?
My attorney has not given me a copy of that, no.
Okay.
Since there's been a reference to immunity, let me give you the instructions that I gave you yesterday. Again, you may take into consideration the grant of immunity in assessing the credibility of a witness who is granted immunity. A grant of immunity means that the witness has been ordered by a court to testify and cannot be prosecuted for or on account of any matter about which she has testified, except for perjury committed while the witness is testifying here in court. The testimony of an immunized witness should be scrutinized with particular care.
Ma'am, it's your testimony at this time that you don't recall the content of the message or who had sent that to you, is that right?
Correct.
I could approach Your Honor. I'm just going to have this, just read this to yourself.
Okay.
Beginning at line 14.
14,
Counsel.
okay.
14, just read that first to the bottom, please.
To what line did you say?
Just, if you wouldn't mind reading to the end.
To the end? Okay.
Just read on the next page, Counsel, 25 to line 15.
Okay. Okay. 9:15, you said, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the last one I'm just going to ask you to read is,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr. Collins.
the last one I'm going to ask you to read, page 26, to herself, lines 16 and 17, please.
Okay.
And you've read that to yourself?
Yes.
And does that refresh your memory about whether you called this number back?
Yes.
Okay. And when you called this person back, who did you speak to?
I don't remember.
Okay. Does it refresh your memory about the content of the text message that you had received and what you were asked to do?
Yes.
And what had that text message caused you to do?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I testify what you did as a result of the text message?
Yes. As a result of receiving that text, what did you do?
I called the number back. Is
I'm
that what you
sorry?
wanna know? I called the number back according to what I read.
Okay. Well, after calling it back, did you do something else?
You said according to what you read, you're being asked your own recollection. Sometimes you may be shown things to see whether they refresh your recollection, but you should not be testifying. You shouldn't be reading the document out loud. If you have a recollection, you indicate. If you don't, you can so indicate.
Okay.
So do you recall, with regard to what you did after receiving that text message?
I don't recall.
Okay. When you say you don't recall, is there something that interferes with your memory to remember, ma'am?
Well, I do take medication. I have post-traumatic stress disorder,
Okay.
and I have a major depression and anxiety and panic disorder.
Okay, so your medication, does that affect your ability to remember?
Yes.
And with regard to me showing you these items, does that refresh your memory in any way about that? You receiving a text message, you making a phone call to the person sending you it, you then doing something else with regard to the number?
It refreshes my memory as far as what you and I discussed at the grand jury. But as far as me remembering personally doing it, no, I don't remember.
Okay, so today, just asking you about today, well, did it refresh your memory back then when you and I first spoke about this subject?
No.
And would you agree that's different than what I just showed you, that you had indicated you did make a phone call to this number?
Sustained.
Well, just so it's clear, are you saying that you don't, that your answer back at the grand jury was different or the same as your answer here today?
Objection. With respect to what?
With regard to what we're talking about?
Overall.
I went by what you had showed me from the phone records.
Okay, so is it your testimony you don't know anything about that particular text message other than that you did receive a text message?
Yes, and that you showed me at the grand jury the list in the context of it.
Okay, meaning the records?
The records, yes.
Okay. And did you then indicate that you did something with that text message back at the grand jury?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I sent the text out, I guess according to what you showed me on the records.
Okay, well,
Well, again, objection sustained. Again, if you recall what you did, you can answer. If you don't, you should indicate.
so are you suggesting that back then you didn't, when you sent it, that was, you were relying on the records or your own memory?
I was relying on the record.
Leading nature of the question.
Overall to that question.
I was relying on the records that you showed me because I didn't remember.
Okay. So to the extent that you answered back then, you're saying your answers were relying on information?
That you had showed me from records.
Okay. But that, would you agree with me, that's not clear in your answers back then?
Well, I object to that, Your Honor.
Sustained. Sustained.
When is the next time, well, let me ask you this. At some point, did you learn about a homicide of an individual in North Attleboro?
Yes.
And after you had first learned about that, when was the next time that you had any contact with the defendant, Aaron Hernandez?
I don't remember. I sent them a text on Father's Day.
Okay. And do you recall how you were communicating, what number you had with him at that time?
I don't.
Do you recall whether he had responded?
I don't remember.
And do you recall whether at any time after that initial text that you sent to him, had you previously used that number to communicate with him, whatever that number was?
Yeah, he had a lot of different numbers, so.
But after that text message, do you recall receiving a different number for him?
I don't remember.
So, ma'am, at the time of the grand jury, is it fair to say you were asked a number of questions about this particular matter?
About?
The investigation of the homicide?
Yes.
Okay. And was your memory, you had certain memories, is that right?
I remembered what I remembered.
Okay. Well, you still remember who you saw outside your home when you went to walk your dog that night, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to, I showed you another document. Do you have no memory about the next occasions, whether you, when you saw Bo and Charlie Boy?
No.
And later on, there were certain, did you have conversations with some of these people that we've been talking about? Bo?
When? What time are you talking about?
When is the last time you had a conversation with him?
The night that I saw him, and that wasn't a conversation, it was just, he said he was leaving. We said goodbye.
And when was the next time that you spoke to him?
When he was incarcerated.
Okay. But, and when is the last time that you've spoke to him?
Before he left to Massachusetts, I guess.
The last time? When is the most recent time you've spoken to him?
When he was incarcerated.
Okay. But just tell us, what is that date?
I don't remember.
Okay. And did you have other forms of communication with him?
A girl called one time.
Okay, no, did you ever speak to him on the phone?
Not that I remember.
You don't recall? having
No.
any phone conversations with him?
No, because
You answered the question.
Okay. And what about other forms of correspondence? Did you correspond with him in other forms?
he sent me a few letters.
And how about you? Did you communicate with him?
I don't believe I wrote him back, no.
Now, what about with regards to money? Was any money provided? Did you provide any money?
Yes, I sent him $180, I believe.
And how did you communicate with him at that time?
I sent a money order and then maybe a letter with it.
Now, do you recall having conversations with the defendant about money, getting money?
I don't.
You don't recall?
No.
Okay. Well, at some point, did you get money for anybody?
Well, my sister, before she was incarcerated, she gave me that money to send to him.
Okay. Well, do you recall having a conversation with him about getting money for your sister?
No,
You don't recall that?
I don't.
Do you recall the defendant sending you letters about, just sending you letters? Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. And that your canteen, that there was money supposed to be put on your sister's canteen?
yes.
Okay. And do you know who was putting money on your sister's canteen?
Objection sustained. Other than a statement by Mr. Hernandez, you may testify if there was a statement to you by telephone or in a letter or in a meeting.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Did the defendant tell you about putting money, getting money to your sister?
Yes,
Okay, and just tell us about that. What did he say?
he said that he would make sure that there was money put on her canteen.
Okay. And how did he say that? Is that in the form of a letter, on a phone, or?
Could have been both.
Okay. And with regard to the, as a result of that conversation or letter, did you have a conversation with your sister about that?
Yes, I believe so.
And did you tell her about that?
I believe so, yes.
Objection sustained.
Your sister at that time was where?
She was incarcerated?
Okay. Now, do you indicated that you were called to the grand jury?
Yes,
And at some point, was your sister called to the grand jury?
yes.
And did she express an intention to do something before or when she went to the grand jury?
What do you mean?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overall.
What did she say to you?
She was going to go to the grand jury.
And did she
She's
say
gonna-
what she was going to do at the grand jury?
She was going to plead the fifth.
And did she indicate to you that where she was going to go from there?
She said that she might,
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
After she went to the grand jury, did she come home?
yes, she did.
Well, within the day she went to the grand jury, as you said, indicating an intention to plead the fifth, did you understand she had been granted immunity to testify?
Objection, Your Honor.
Could I see counsel? am striking the question with respect to the witness's intention to take the fifth. You should disregard it. You should strike it out of your minds, not discuss it during deliberations. Every witness or every person at all times has the option to take the Fifth Amendment unless they have been ordered by a court to testify. You may proceed.
Ma'am,
You must not draw any inference adverse to the defendant by virtue of the testimony with respect to her indicating an intent. As I indicated, you can't draw any inference at all. You can't use that evidence.
do you recall when your sister went to the grand jury?
Yes.
And after going to the grand jury, did you not see her for some period of time?
Yes.
Okay, for approximately how long?
6, 7 months.
And during that time, did you have any communication with the defendant?
Yes.
And did you talk to him about your sister?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us what you talked about.
Talked about her health, how she was doing. I may have mentioned that there was, I didn't have any money to put on her books, which was the canteen.
Okay. And what else did you talk about?
The kids, the boys,
Okay.
and how he was doing.
Okay. And what else about her situation? Well, what was she incarcerated for?
To the extent you had a conversation about that with the defendant, you may testify.
She was incarcerated for contempt of court.
Okay. And what was the contempt of court? To the extent that you had a conversation, that you spoke about it with the defendant?
Sustained to the form, you may testify as to what you talked to the defendant about, what you said to the defendant.
I don't remember exactly what I said to him.
Okay, well, just summarize for us, if you would.
Like I said, we would talk about her health, her,
Okay, but I'm asking specifically, you said about the contempt, so I'm asking about that. What conversations did you have with the defendant about your sister's contempt of court?
that she shouldn't be in there.
Okay. And what did he say?
I don't remember.
Okay, well, how many times did you talk to him about this?
I don't remember.
Can you give us an estimate?
Once or twice.
And on those one or two occasions, how many times did you talk to him in total?
I don't know. He called the house a few times to speak with the boys.
Would you speak to him as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so how many times did you speak to him?
I want to say maybe a max of maybe 5 times,
Okay.
6 times.
And during those 5 or 6 times that you spoke with him, was that during the time that your sister was incarcerated?
Not all of them, no.
And while your sister was incarcerated, who was caring for her children?
I was and my father.
Okay. And during that time, when you spoke to the defendant about her, being held in contempt, what else was spoken about that situation?
Just that I was having like hard times because I didn't have money like for her canteen or like for the kids' clothes for school and stuff like that, and it was expensive because the phone calls were expensive.
Well, to the extent that you had these conversations with the defendant about that she shouldn't be there, what did he say?
I don't remember.
Was that an important conversation you were having about your sister being incarcerated and you having the children?
Sustained.
Okay. How do you not remember that conversation?
I don't remember.
Sustained. And let me also instruct you that what this witness may have said to the defendant is not coming in for the truth of what she said, but for the defendant's state of mind.
What did he say to you about this situation with your sister being incarcerated?
He agreed that she shouldn't have been in there.
Okay. And did he explain why she shouldn't be?
Her health.
No, did he explain why she was there?
I don't understand.
Okay. Did the defendant tell you why your sister was being incarcerated?
He knew why she was incarcerated.
Okay, so what did he say?
It wasn't right.
Okay. What did he say about why she was there?
I don't understand your...
Okay.
I don't understand.
I think you had indicated she had gone to the grand jury. Is that right?
Yes.
And as a result of going to the grand jury, she was then held in contempt.
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss what happened with the defendant, what happened at the grand jury that caused her to be held in contempt?
No, just that, not that I remember. This is that she went to jail for
doing what? For
pleading.
not doing what?
for not answering the questions at the grand jury.
Okay. So did you talk to the defendant about your sister Tanya, not answering questions at the grand jury?
Yeah, well,
You've answered the question.
Okay. What did he say about that?
I don't know. I don't remember what he said.
Okay, well, was there anybody else involved in that conversation?
No, just us.
Okay, so when you were talking to him,
Yes,
and was then he talking to you?
yes.
Okay, so what was he saying about your sister not answering the questions at the grand jury?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Okay. Do you recall whether he indicated how long she would have to remain for her failure to not answer?
I don't know, but I believe I told him.
Okay. When you say you had told him, what did you tell him?
I think I told him, she'd have to stay in there for a few months.
And what did he say to that?
I don't remember. Maybe he said that was BS or something.
Okay. And to the extent that at that time, was your sister sick?
Yes,
Okay. And did you have a conversation with her about why she was not answering questions?
because she didn't know anything.
So therefore, what did he say about whether she knew or didn't know anything?
Sustained.
Okay, well, ma'am, what else? You have to tell us what conversation you had with the defendant.
Mainly we talked about her health because she's got 4th stage metastatic breast cancer. So
Okay. And so to the extent that did you have that conversation with the defendant?
I may have because he knows my sister's sick.
Okay, so he understood that was her condition at that time?
Yes,
Okay. And did he say anything to you about whether she should answer questions?
no, not that I recall.
Okay. And did he indicate to you why she shouldn't answer questions?
Objection sustained. Ask you not to ask leading questions.
So tell us what else was spoken about your sister's situation, being sick and being held in contempt because she wouldn't answer questions.
Because she shouldn't be there, because she's sick and because she doesn't know anything.
Okay. And so to the extent that you spoke to him about, did you have a conversation with him, the defendant, about what he knew?
No, I don't believe so. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, at that time, did you understand he had been charged?
Yes,
Okay. So what conversations did you have with him about this situation?
and he said that he was innocent, that he didn't do it, and that God will see us through.
Okay. And did he indicate where he was that night?
No,
Okay. Did he indicate who he was with that night?
no,
Did he indicate when he had last seen Odin Lloyd?
no,
Okay. Did he indicate whether he had been with Odin Lloyd at the time of his death?
no. He never mentioned anything about
Okay.
the case.
So to the extent that you had conversations with him about this circumstance, your sister who's sick is in custody, and him being in custody, what did he say about that situation?
The objection sustained.
What other conversation did you have with him about this matter?
I'll let you have this one last question.
That was primarily it from what I can recall, was just about her health and that she shouldn't be in there because of her health and because she didn't know anything about nothing.
Okay. And when you say not that you recall, is it do you believe there may be other things that you now don't recall?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you think your memory has interfered with your ability to recall from the time of June 2013 till today?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Ma'am, do you know who Prince is?
Princess?
Or Prince first?
No.
You've not heard anybody referred to as Prince?
No.
Okay, how about Princess?
Yes.
Who is that?
AVL.
Okay.
AVL.
And can you spell that for us?
AVIELLE.
And who is Avio?
Aaron's daughter.
Okay. And would you agree with me she's approximately 2 or 3 years old?
Yes.
Okay. Did she ever give you money?
No.
Do you recall indicating that Princess had given you money?
Don't remember, no.
Well, if the
Princess
child...
didn't.
The child didn't give you money?
AVL, no.
Okay. So who that you referred to as Princess would have given you money?
Her mom,
Okay, and who is her mom?
Cheyenne Jenkins.
Okay. And have you called her Princess before?
I never did.
Okay, well, when I asked you a few minutes ago, who's Princess, you said,
AVL, because that's what I call AVL.
okay. Do other people call somebody else Princess?
May have.
Well, you just indicated that her mother, who calls her mother Princess?
Bo used to call her Princess.
And do you recall Princess, what Bo calls a Princess, Cheyenne Jenkins, ever giving you money?
She gave me money one time, I believe,
Okay. And when did she give you money?
for the, if she did, it was around the time when the kids had to go to school,
Okay. And where was Tanya at that time?
incarcerated.
And how was it that she gave you money?
She called me and told me to meet her because she had some school clothes and some supplies to help me out with the kids.
And do you recall that being sometime in August, early August?
Yes. 'Cause that-
And do you recall at that time how long your sister had been gone or incarcerated?
my sister got incarcerated, I believe it was August 1st.
Okay. And do you recall at that time having a conversation where you were talking to your sister about certain things that you had talked to Aaron about?
Yes.
Okay. And did that include something about the money?
Sustained.
And what, if anything, did that involve money?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you have a conversation with the defendant about money?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overall.
Did you have a conversation with the defendant about money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And what did he say about money?
He said he would help me out if he could.
Okay. And did he indicate who would get money to you?
Cheyenne.
And what about to Tanya?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he just said that he would make sure that she had canteen.
And do you know how that canteen money was going to be delivered?
No.
Okay, did you have a conversation with him about that? The
No.
defendant? So, were you then getting money from the defendant to put on a canteen for Tanya?
No.
So to the extent that he indicated he was going to get canteen money for Tanya, who was going to do that, if you know?
I don't know.
And do you recall having conversation where somebody was referred to as Prince?
No.
Do you recall having a conversation with your sister, Tanya, where Prince was discussed?
No.
You don't recall that?
No, I don't.
Do you recall having a conversation with your sister on August?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you recall having a conversation with your sister on August 3rd, approximately 10:23 in the morning?
I object to this, Your Honor.
Objection to ruled as to whether there was a conversation.
I don't recall.
Okay. Your Honor, could I come to the side
May.
quickly?
We're going to take a morning recess at this time. Just keep an open mind or discuss the case among yourselves of anything else.
But all rise for the jury, please.